Defying Gravity is not only a great song at the end of Wicked Act 1, it is a cleverilliant culmination of previous musical ideas relating to Elphaba. It has a transformation of the opening Wicked fanfare to represent how Elphaba embraces herself and her power. And once you come to deeply understand that power theme, you'll also realize how The Wizard and I introduces fragments of it, and I'm Not That Girl has a backwards version of it. With that in mind, let's decipherate how these pieces of shiz are all outward manifestoriums twisted out of the same musical core to reflect Elphaba's character, and in so doing, you'll discoverify Stephen Schwartz's cleverilliance. Let's start with a breakdown of the musical elements for the opening fanfare, since that's what we hear first, and we can see how other Elphaba music transforms it later. The opening fanfare represents the perception of Elphaba as a wicked witch, so it's the wicked, wicked fanfare. Let's start with the rhythm. It starts on a beat and then goes off beat. Harmonically, we can construct this by starting with an A minor triad and then moving the fifth up by step. In addition, to get that feeling of tension and wickedness, there are added notes for the final chord. Specifically, we have an added second and an added fourth above the bass. Jazz musicians refer to these additions as sus. In a general sus chord, the second and fourth replace the third of the chord, but by having the third at the same time as we do here, there's a little more bite to it. You might notice that the total scale degrees present seem like a mess. We have 7, 1, 2, 3, and 4, but they are registrally spread out. Scale degree 1 is more in the lowest range, 3 is in the highest range, and then those moving parts are in the middle range, emphasized by having the loud brass instruments to play them. So to summarize, the rhythm starts on a beat and then is off beat, and for harmony, we have a minor triad, a line that moves by step from the fifth, and for the final chord, added sus notes of a second and fourth above the bass. After those big brass chords, there's also this frantic, fast melody figure that also gets transformed, but I'm going to come back to that later. Now let's see what happens if we jump all the way to the end of Act 1, by which point we've learned about Elphaba's perspective, and the showstopper Defying Gravity represents her embracing herself and her power. This is Elphaba's power theme, which we hear in Defying Gravity. In order to get the connection, let's take the opening fanfare and make some adjustments one at a time to transform it from the tense and frightening opening into the more open and self-assured, powerful theme of Defying Gravity. In order to adjust this gradually, I'm going to be moving things around inside with MIDI. Here's a quick and rough approximation of the opening fanfare. One way you could make it a little more self-assured would be to adjust the rhythm to be more clear and strong. So let's move from the first part of the rhythm, instead of on the beat on beat 2, let's make it on the downbeat. And instead of being in a minor key, let's flip that to major. The moving line still creates a lot of clashes, so let's put that into the bass a little bit farther away and pull back on the tension by having fewer simultaneous notes. One way we could do that is, instead of starting from a triad and having that repeated third throughout, we could instead start with a fifth, which will have a much more open and heroic quality. I'll also adjust the orchestration a bit. Notice that there's less dissonance because the final chord doesn't have added notes. However, we still end up on a much milder type of sus chord like before, in this case called sus2. If we make a little adjustment to this repeated open fifth so that it coordinates better with the bass, and condense the rhythm to avoid repeating that last chord, we now end up with Elphaba's power theme in Defying Gravity. Okay, quick summary of how something has changed within these and something is not the same. We still have the rhythm idea of onbeat and then offbeat, but it's a stronger onbeat for a stronger Elphaba. We still have a repeated sonority against which a line moves by step, except something is not the same here. The underlying scale changed to major. The moving line is also in the bass, and there's less tension overall by adding the line to an open fifth rather than a triad. They also both end on a sus-type sonority, but in the fanfare, there are added notes which stack on top of each other to create extra dissonance, whereas in the power theme, it's the thinnest possible sus sonority. Let's hear these two back to back. It's still the Wicked fanfare, but she's made it her own. And this isn't the only way that Defying Gravity seems to reclaim aspects of that Wicked fanfare. Remember how I said there was a frantic flourish? Check out how that fits in. Immediately after the big brass chords, we hear a frenetic line still representing the perception of Elphaba as wicked at the beginning of the act. Much like the progressions we've dealt with, we have two notes which are held constant against which another line rises by step. What's different here is that the rising line moves chromatically. It also sounds extra tense because that line really clashes with the chords under it. It keeps rising until in its most expanded form, it has a semitone and a perfect fifth, which, by the way, really clashes with the harmony under it. At the end of the act, Defying Gravity reclaims that frantic flourish as well, by taking the semitone and perfect fifth and allowing it to float over harmonies with less tension by being in the same key as those harmonies. But Defying Gravity is not only a transformation of the Wicked fanfare. Once you can hear the musical trajectory, Elphaba's other songs start to take on extra meaning as well, because you can hear little hints of the power theme forming within them. By giving us hints of the power theme, Stephen Schwartz composes songs that sound like Elphaba is looking for her power. The first big Elphaba song is The Wizard and I, in which she sings about coming into her power, but she hasn't really embraced herself yet. And she suggests that her path toward acceptance would involve the wizard degreenifying her. Here are a couple spots in The Wizard and I which sound like fragments of the power theme. Instead of an open fifth and a single moving line, what if we take a single note repeated and have a stepwise line that's harmonized in thirds? The bass is moving up by step, just like the power theme, but like the fanfare, there's also an added note on the final chord to make it yet another sus sonority. That's a very vague connection, but that's sort of my point right now. As we move through the act, Elphaba's music is going to gradually get closer and closer to the power theme. I think even by the end of this same song, it starts to get a little bit closer. Let's take the power theme and reduce it down to its bare bones rhythm, so instead of the original, we can just summarize it like this. For the harmony, just like in Defying Gravity, let's have an open fifth be repeated throughout, and then some other motion against it. If you want to land on a sus sonority, like all these different previous versions I've shown you have done, one way to do that would be to have a leap in the bass and an added note on the final chord like this. If you didn't follow all that theory jargon, just listen if you can hear the similarity with the power theme. To me, it sounds like Elphaba is searching for that power theme, but hasn't yet found it. So we never get a full iteration, just only hints of it. But I think in the next song, we get a little bit musically closer to finding that power theme. Right after Galinda sings about how she'll make Elphaba popular, Elphaba sings the song I'm Not That Girl, and she depicts how she grapples with her own identity. She's not wicked, but she also hasn't fully embraced her power. It starts like this. Hopefully by now you immediately notice that this has an open fifth against which one line moves by step. I guess the rhythm here is vaguely related to the opening fanfare and the power theme, since it has this idea of on the beat and then off the beat, but more likely Elphaba's molding herself a little bit toward the rhythm that was present in the song Popular. So whether or not there's a vague rhythmic similarity is a little bit of a side note. I think what's really cool is that harmonically, Elphaba is getting really freaking close to finding that power theme. Like Defying Gravity, our underlying scale will be major, and there will be an open fifth against which a line moves by step. Except this time, it sounds like a backwards version of Defying Gravity, with the bass moving downward and starting from a sus2 sonority. And by the way, when we get down to scale degree 2, there's a little adjustment of the harmony to match it, and that's a little detail I also pointed out which happens in the power theme of Defying Gravity.
Sudden silence, sudden heat.
One way that we can read into this relationship for I'm Not That Girl is because of the way it's a little more closely related to the power theme of Defying Gravity, would be that Elphaba is not really lamenting her sense of difference in this song, but rather starting to embrace it. That's just one of many ways which composer Stephen Schwartz really is cleverilliant in composing music for good. Congratulations to you on making it to the end of this video, and if you found this confusifying, let me know in the comments, and if you want to express your gratitude and encouragerize more swankified content like this, check the links in the description or share this video with that friend who loves Wicked.